Hello everybody, it's TannerFishies here, back again with a new Ninjago video here on the channel. In today's video we are going to be discussing the dreaded word filler and the negative connotations surrounding the word, especially in the Ninjago community. Now this is a word that I've seen get thrown around a lot in conversations, whether it be on Twitter, Instagram, Discord, my YouTube comments section, you name it. The word filler gets used very frequently to describe episodes of Ninjago that aren't all that great, or for some episodes that really don't deserve to be called filler. I've seen this a lot, especially following Season 15's conclusion. There are definitely some confused people out there using the word filler in a way that it shouldn't be really used at all. Now, in terms of an actual definition for the word filler, it does kind of vary based on genre, but usually the word filler is used to describe an episode of a long-running TV series which doesn't really add anything to the plot. We can see here in this definition that I found online, a filler episode is one which nothing happens to affect the progress of the long-term story arcs or develop the main characters, and no returning side characters or other significant persons other than the main characters appear. So obviously the word filler is used to describe those types of episodes that don't really add anything to the overall plot. Like I said, this is very much utilized in a lot of various anime series. Shows like Pokemon, Bleach, Fairy Tail, a lot of those shows do get criticized a lot for providing way too much filler to the audience, and while Ninjago is not an anime per se, it does have a very long episode count, meaning that some of those episodes are going to be lumped into this category regardless, and I do believe that there are indeed some episodes of Ninjago that should be classified as filler, while other episodes that aren't filler get unfairly categorized as such. So in terms of anime, filler is basically utilized to extend the anime a little bit. A lot of anime are based off of manga or Japanese comics, and the anime sometimes catches up to the production of the manga, meaning that there's nothing to adapt anymore. So the manga goes ahead and continues its normal pace, and the anime will go ahead and provide some random side story just to give the manga time to get ahead. A lot of this is very much a pacing issue, and we can kind of see the same thing happening to Ninjago. That's why we're comparing the two. Like I said, Ninjago is not an anime per se, but it is based on something. While it's not based on manga, Ninjago is indeed based on the sets that are released to correspond with the seasons. A lot of the times they run side by side. From what I've seen in behind the scenes interviews and whatnot, the sets and the show are kind of produced in tandem with each other, but Ninjago by definition is a toy commercial. The show is utilized to sell the sets. But obviously the same kind of principle applies here. Like with anime, they need time for the manga to catch up, and we can totally see that happening with Ninjago, where the sets need to catch up to the actual storyline of the show. We're going to be discussing that right now in the first, I guess, filler arc of the Ninjago TV series, if you want to call it that, which was introduced into the show during Season 2. Now with Ninjago Season 2, it basically picked up in July of 2012, and it tried to correspond to the small summer wave of 2012 sets, which from my knowledge only included 4 sets in particular, and it was basically a continuation of what was established earlier in the year, much like how Season 2 picked up where Season 1 left off. Particularly episodes 1 through 6 get outed as being filler-esque, I suppose, but I would argue that some of those episodes actually do matter to the overall plot and should not be considered filler. Those episodes are Darkness Shall Rise, Child's Play, and Wrong Place, Wrong Time. These 3 episodes actually do matter to the story in some regard. I would argue that these 3 episodes are very crucial to the overall Ninjago plot, but everything else could be cut out of that. So episodes 2, 3, and 4, essentially. Some of those episodes do indeed introduce characters like the pirates and some other side stories that have also been brought up in Ninjago's future beyond Season 2, but at the time it really didn't matter to the overarching structure of Season 2, so you could have just cut those episodes out entirely and nothing would be changed. So by definition, episodes 2, 3, and 4 of Season 2 would be considered to be filler to an extent. Obviously, you could indeed argue against that, but for the sake of this video, they are indeed filler. A popular theory as to why this was actually done was to, like I said, better line up the episodes with the sets. So obviously Season 2 was not entirely filler focused. Starting from episode 7 onwards, we very much saw a plunge into the 2013 Ninjago story, which the sets were not out at the time because this was still mid-2012. Obviously the sets were not going to come out for a very long time, so Ninjago had to go ahead and put some filler episodes out in order to better line up the show with the sets. There was also a very significant break in between these episodes. There was a very large break in between episode 6 of Season 2 and episode 7, meaning that they were once again trying to go ahead and push some of those later episodes of Season 2 to better line up with the 2013 release of sets, which of course were not supposed to come out until the very end of the year. And in a way, providing filler to, I guess, expand the season a little bit more, and that significant break, it actually did go ahead ahead and line up the final battle with the release of some of the sets. At least it tried to. The actual series itself, at least season 2, ended in November of 2012, which was close enough to the January 2013 release wave for the final battle sets. It was a pretty significant gap, like I said, but it was still close enough. I mean, the actual final battle pretty much ended a month before the sets came out. I'd say that's a pretty good amount of time. And again, there were a couple of things that kind of pulled this off. For one, the break in between episodes 6 and 7 definitely helped, but we also had the couple of filler episodes at the beginning of the season, or as I like to call it, Garmadon's Mega Weapon Adventures. That's a pretty good name for the arc, I'd imagine. The filler episodes of season 2 didn't really have a positive reception. It's pretty much a 50-50 split. You either love the episodes or you hate them. And again, not every episode from the first half of season 2 I would consider to be filler. I would only consider episodes 2, 3, and 4 to be filler-esque, while the other episodes in season 2 are all perfectly applicable to the plot and actually do things that matter to the characters. Following season 2, there wasn't really any filler episodes up until we reached season 11, a very good number of years later. Now, season 11, otherwise known as Secrets of the Forbidden Spinjitzu, the start of the Wild Brain era for Ninjago, has definitely been criticized by a lot of Ninjago fans for including way too much filler, and it's not just season 11 that gets this treatment. We can also see the same thing happening in seasons 12, 13, and 15. I wouldn't say that season 14 has any filler because there are only 4 episodes in that season, but some people do consider the entirety of the island to be filler, so do with that information what you will. But the point is, there are indeed several episodes of season 11 that do indeed count as filler, but a lot of episodes from seasons 12, 13, and 15 do get criticized for being filler as well, which in my opinion is not super great because a lot of those episodes actually are not filler. The only episodes that I would argue are filler actually do come from season 11. Season 11 had 30 episodes, the most that we had ever seen for a Ninjago season, and some of them definitely took away from the bigger plot. I'd say the biggest one was probably Kaiju Protocol. That episode is very infamous for providing just a lot of useless filler to the overall story. It's very hated by a lot of Ninjago fans, but it's not the only one. I would also argue that the absolute worst was also kind of filler-esque, but episodes that establish flashbacks and character motivation in season 11, those are definitely not classified as filler. In other seasons from Ninjago's Wild Brain era, we actually had some complaints for season 12, at least for a few episodes. The biggest one that I saw was for Ninjago Confidential, but of course I would argue that that episode is definitely not filler. It's just a side story to the overall main, I guess, Prime Empire storyline. We can see a similar thing happening in Ninjago season 13, with some episodes that are indeed backstories or flashbacks being labeled as filler, which is just not the case. I mean, a backstory is a backstory. It's not filler. And I think the, disconnect between flashbacks and filler is what is ultimately bringing a lot of people to be confused over various episodes of season 15. The biggest episode from season 15 that I've seen, be labeled as filler is the Tale of Benthamar, which got a lot of heat for some reason. Now let me go ahead and clarify that this episode is not classified as filler. I do not believe that this episode can even be remotely classified as filler for a couple of reasons. For one, this does indeed introduce the character, background and origin of Benthamar. It explains why he's important, his overall backstory, his relationship with his brother Kalmar, and the relationship with his late father in the process. So by that logic, it's a very, very important episode to the overall story. It's probably one of the best, if not the most important episode of season 15. Now, it does get a lot of hate though. People do consider this episode to be filler, the only reason being that it doesn't really progress the main story, which isn't really the case for a lot of Ninjago episodes. Sometimes it's okay to take a step back and explore the backstory of a certain character, or explore the origins of another character. We've seen that especially with various episodes in the Wild Brain era of Ninjago. We've seen Akita get a backstory episode. The Lowly got their origin story done up in a flashback episode as well, and now in season 15 we have a backstory episode for Benthamar, one of the most important characters of that season. Backstories and flashbacks are not filler, and I think that's where the main confusion is coming from in the Ninjago community. People are so quick to throw around the word filler even though it doesn't really apply to a lot of cases. Yes, there are indeed some Ninjago episodes that are indeed filler and actually do have a legitimate reason for existing, but in terms of flashback episodes, we can't consider those to be filler because they actually do play an important role in the plot of the season. Backstory is important for establishing character dynamics, motivations, intentions, and all of that kind of stuff. It's very important to explore what these characters are all about, and if that means taking an episode of the season to explain their backstory and their origin, then I am all for that. Yeah, it does kind of take away from the overall main story, but it's not considered filler because it still matters, you know what I'm saying? It still is applicable to the overall story, it just doesn't progress it anymore in the present. It takes a minute to go ahead and explore the past, which by definition is not filler in any way, shape, or form. I feel like the large majority of Ninjago fans get it. I feel like a lot of people do understand what filler is and what filler is not. However, I just figured I would go ahead and explain that flashbacks are not filler. That's basically the big takeaway from this video. There are some episodes of Ninjago that can indeed be considered to be filler, such as some of the episodes of Season 2 that we discussed, and indeed some episodes from Season 11. But other than that, I would argue that the Wild Brain Saga has definitely not included any filler in Seasons 12, 13, 14, and 15. That's essentially going to do it for this video today. Just wanted to give my insight as to what filler is and what filler isn't, and what that does to the Ninjago story and which episodes apply to that. The biggest takeaway from this video is, once again, flashbacks are not considered to be filler. That's essentially the biggest thing that I can leave you guys with. Flashbacks are not filler. Thank you so much for checking out this video, guys. If you enjoyed, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and check out the links down below in the description for my other forms of social media. As always, big shout out goes out to my Patreon supporters, including, once again, the marvelous Jan. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video. Once again, my name is TannerFishies, and with that, I bid you farewell.